You know that specific feeling, and I'm not talking about being sleepy because you stayed up too late watching a show. I'm talking about that feeling where you are just completely, utterly drained.
Oh, absolutely. The
Hmm.
kind of tired where, sleep doesn't really fix it. It's just right in your bones.
Exactly. It's almost like a soul tiredness. And the weird thing is, usually when we feel that way, we have a script for it. We tell ourselves it's because we've been working too hard.
Yeah,
Or maybe we're just burnt out. We think, I just need a vacation, or I need to turn my phone off for a weekend.
right. We treat it like a battery that just needs recharging.
Yeah.
Like if we just plug it in, we'll be fine.
But have you ever felt that exhaustion and then someone, maybe a well-meaning friend or a therapist, tells you, hey, maybe you just care too much?
It sounds like a backhanded compliment, doesn't it?
Totally.
Like, oh, you're just too good of a person. You're a martyr.
Right. It
It-
feels really dismissive. But here's where it gets incredibly interesting for this deep dive. What if that exhaustion isn't because you need a vacation? What if it's actually a structural problem in how you exist in the world? What if the problem isn't the amount of work you're doing, but the architecture of why you're doing it?
That is a massive shift in perspective. You're moving from quantity like how much I do to quality and structure.
It really is. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are looking at a set of fascinating articles and research by Tony Zampella. And I have to say to everyone listening, this isn't your typical productivity advice.
No, definitely not.
This is dense, philosophical, and honestly a little bit life-changing. Our mission today is to completely decode the signals your brain and body are sending you.
Yes. Zampella is a heavyweight in this space. And just to give everyone the proper context before we really dive in, because his background really informs this unique take. Tony Zampella is the founder of Bhavana Learning Group, experts in contemplative learning to cultivate inner wisdom.
Right.
As a wisdom coach, guide, and leadership and learning consultant, Tony's work involves ontological inquiry, integral meta theory, and Buddhist psychology to sustain contemplative practice.
So we aren't just talking about time management hacks or how to organize your inbox today. We are going deep.
We are going very deep. We are essentially trying to completely redefine the word care. And to do that, Zampella challenges what he calls the unlearning curve. He argues that we have to unlearn our common definition of care to understand why we actually do what we do.
And I love the hook that Zampella starts with to illustrate this. He talks about a specific client he had. This client was, well, she was exhausted.
Right.
She was the picture of modern success, but internally she was just crumbling. She did everything the self-help books tell you to do. She set boundaries. She said no to things. She stepped back from roles she loved. And guess what?
The exhaustion came right back.
It came right back. Yeah. And Zampella says, and this gave me chills when I read it, he says, the problem wasn't a failure of self-care. It was, and I quote, fidelity to something deeper and never named.
That is such a powerful phrase. Yeah. Fidelity to something deeper.
It stops you in your tracks, right? Because usually we think of exhaustion as a failure, like I failed to rest, I failed to protect my time. But he's saying, no, this exhaustion is actually an act of loyalty.
Exactly.
So what does that mean? If I'm exhausted, how is that fidelity? How is my burnout a sign of loyalty?
Well, this is the crux of our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We have to move away from thinking of care as just a warm, fuzzy emotion or a moral duty.
Yeah.
We have to start seeing care as a structure of being.
A structure of being. Okay, that sounds a little abstract. Let's unpack that.
Yeah.
When you say structure of being, what are we actually comparing it to?
Think of it this way.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about care, we are talking about psychology. We ask questions like, why do you feel this way? Or what acts of kindness did you perform today? We treat care like the paint job on a car.
Yeah.
It makes things look nice, it adds color, it gives the car personality.
Right? Like I care about my dog or I care about the environment. It's a feeling I have. It's a psychological trait, an attribute of me.
Exactly. But Zampella is arguing for an ontological view. An ontology is the study of being, of existence itself. It asks, how is it possible for this to exist or matter to you in the first place? In this view, care isn't the paint job. It's the engine.
The engine.
It's the chassis. It's the entire mechanical structure that makes the car move in the first place.
So without care, the car doesn't just look bad. It doesn't go at all.
It doesn't exist meaningfully. Zampella calls care the quiet architecture that makes life intelligible. It's the invisible field that organizes relevance.
Organizes relevance. I really like that. Because if you think about it, there are a million things happening around us right now. The hum of the fridge, the traffic outside, the color of the wall, the sensation of my shoes on my feet. But I'm not paying attention to those. I'm paying attention to this conversation.
Precisely. And why? Because you care about this conversation. Care is what highlights certain things in your world and lets others fade into the background. It determines what stands out. It determines what matters. If you didn't care, in the ontological sense, everything would be flat. Everything would be just noise. You wouldn't be able to function.
So Zampella is saying we don't have care, we are care.
Yes. That is the fundamental shift. He draws heavily on the philosopher Martin Heidegger here. Heidegger had this concept of Sorge, or care, as the fundamental structure of Dasein, or being in the world.
Okay, don't lose me with the German philosophy. Let's keep it grounded for everyone listening.
It's simpler than it sounds, I promise. It just means humans are never neutral. We are never just static objects like a rock sitting in a field. We are always involved. We're always concerned with what we are becoming, what we might lose, what we need to protect. We are swimming in care. It's the water.
So even the guy who says, I don't care about anything, the guy sitting on his couch ignoring the world, he actually cares deeply about, not being bothered.
Exactly. His apathy is a form of protection. He cares about safety, or he cares about avoiding pain, or he cares about maintaining his own comfort. The structure of care is still there. It's just organized around avoidance. He is constructing his reality around the care of being left alone.
Okay, so if care is this fundamental structure, like the skeleton of our lives, why does Zampella say it leads to exhaustion? If it's natural, if it's just the water we swim in, shouldn't it feel effortless?
That is the million-dollar question. And it brings us to the second major part of our discussion. What happens when care is obscured?
Obscure, like hidden or blocked.
Hidden or constricted. Zampella argues that when we don't recognize care as a structure, we live without clarity. We work harder, but we feel less oriented. We try to fix ourselves using psychology, like, I need to manage my stress better, or I need to be more positive, when the issue is actually ontological.
The structure itself.
Right. The structure of our life is misaligned with what actually matters to us.
So we are treating the symptom, not the disease. We're putting a Band-Aid on a broken balloon.
Exactly. And Zampella identifies 4 specific symptoms, he calls them signals, that indicate our care is constricted. And I have to say, reading these, it was like reading a biography of my 20s. Oh. It was uncomfortably accurate.
I felt the same way. Which one stood out to you first?
Well, let's look at the first one. Persistent inner conflict.
Ah, yes. That feeling of being totally torn.
But it's more than just indecision. It's that feeling of wanting to leave a job, for example, but feeling physically unable to do it. And it's not just fear of being broke. Zampella calls it a felt absence of possibility.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not just, I'm scared to quit. It's, I literally cannot see a path forward that makes sense to who I am.
Right. You're stuck because your care structure is keeping you in place, protecting something you haven't named yet. Maybe you're staying in the toxic job because you have a deep structural care for loyalty, or for finishing what you started. And leaving feels like an ontological death, even if staying is slowly killing you.
So you're essentially paralyzed.
You're paralyzed by your own hidden commitments.
And then there's the second signal, compulsive activity. This is the busy badge of honor that so many of us wear.
Oh, we see this everywhere. Being busy with emails, tasks, just running around like a headless chicken, but feeling totally empty at the end of the day.
It's the hamster wheel.
It is, but Zampella calls it action without mattering. You're doing things, but they don't connect to that deep structure of what you actually care about. It's like spinning your tires in the mud, the engine is revving, the gas is burning, but the car isn't moving.
That perfectly explains why you can work a 12-hour day and feel like you accomplished nothing. Because ontologically, you didn't. You moved matter around, but you didn't touch what matters.
Precisely.
The third one hit me really hard, too. Cynicism.
This is a big one. We usually think cynicism means someone has given up, they're checked out, they just don't care anymore.
Right. The grumpy guy in the back of the meeting rolling his eyes at every new initiative. The nihilist.
But Zampella flips that entirely on its head. He says cynicism isn't the absence of care. It's care without a viable future.
Whoa. Say that again. That feels really important.
Cynicism is care without a viable future. You withdraw, not because nothing matters, but because what does matter to you no longer seems possible in your current environment.
That is actually incredibly tragic when you think about it.
It is. It's a heartbreak. Imagine you care deeply about quality craftsmanship, but you work for a company that only rewards speed and cheap materials. Eventually, you become cynical about the work, not because you don't want to do a good job, but because the structure of your environment makes doing a good job impossible.
So the cynicism is actually a defense mechanism. It's protecting your care from being crushed repeatedly. It hurts less to say it doesn't matter than to admit it matters and watch it fail every single day.
Exactly. The cynic is just a disappointed idealist.
And the fourth signal is anxiety. Now, in our culture, anxiety is the enemy. It's something to medicate, to meditate away, to just get rid of.
And Zampella challenges that deeply. He argues that anxiety shouldn't just be eliminated. He says anxiety arises when care is alive, but uncertain of its direction. It's a signal that you care about something, but that something has no path to exist right now.
So if you're listening to this and you struggle with anxiety, instead of saying, I have anxiety, I need to calm down, we should be asking, what is this anxiety trying to tell me about what I care about?
Yes. It's a complete reframe of mental health struggles.
Mm-hmm.
The new thought process is, my anxiety is a signal that I care about something that currently has no scaffolding in my life.
That is so much more empowering than just thinking you have a chemical imbalance or that you're just a naturally nervous person. It gives the feeling of purpose.
It turns the symptom into data. And that is the core of this ontological approach. Stop judging the feeling and start reading the signal.
Okay, so we have these signals. We know we're cynical or anxious or exhausted. But how do we actually find out what the hidden care is? Because if you walk up to someone and ask, hey, what do you care about? They're just going to give you a rehearsed answer.
Right, they'll give you the resume answer. I care about world peace, or I care about my family, or I care about doing a good job.
Exactly. It's the PR version of themselves.
Zampella says we have to move beyond that. We have to listen for being. This connects to Otto Scharmer's theory. You listening for the place that the person is speaking from, not just the words they are saying out loud. We are looking for lived patterns, not stated goals.
So how do we do that practically? What are we looking for? If I'm trying to figure out what my friend or even what I actually care about, what are the clues?
Zampella gives us 4 specific indicators to watch for. And these are things you can look for in yourself or in the people around you. The first is energy signals.
Okay, energy signals. Break that down for us.
Where does a person's energy reliably rise or collapse?
Yeah.
Think about a colleague. Maybe they're totally bored during the budget meeting. They're slumped over, checking their phone, eyes glazed over. But then you bring up the user experience, how a real person uses the product, and suddenly they light up.
They sit up. They start talking faster.
They're leaning in. They're interrupting with ideas. That shift is the signal.
That's the care breaking through.
Exactly. The budget doesn't matter to their structure of being. The user impact does. That's where their care lives.
Yeah.
If you want to know what someone cares about, don't ask them. Watch where they come alive.
I see. So it's not about what they say is important on their quarterly review. It's about what actually electrifies them in the moment.
Correct. The second indicator is protective commitments. What does someone defend instinctively?
Oh, I like this one. Like the person who risks their reputation to tell the boss the hard truth.
Yes. Why would they do that? It's irrational if you only care about job security. You care about safety. You keep your mouth shut. But if you have a structural care for truth or integrity, you almost can't help it. You protect it instinctively. You throw yourself on the grenade to protect the truth.
It reminds me of the parent Zampella mentions, the one who declines late meetings. They don't make a big speech about work-life balance to the team. They just say no.
That falls into background concerns, which is the third indicator. These are the non-negotiables that are rarely named. They're just the rules you live by without realizing it. It's the water you swim in. For that parent, family time isn't a goal to achieve. It's a structural necessity for their existence.
And finally, there are core concerns.
These are things that cannot be relinquished, like sticking with a community project that is clearly failing.
Right. Logically, you should quit. The return on investment is terrible, but you can't, because quitting would feel like
a betrayal of who you are.
a betrayal of who you are. Man, that is heavy. But it explains so much about why we stay in bad situations sometimes. We aren't being stupid. We are being faithful.
It does. And the goal of listening for these things, whether you're a manager, a friend, or just listening to yourself, isn't to fix the person. It's to make them feel gotten. When you reflect back to someone, I see that you are protecting the integrity of this team, they relax because their structure has been recognized.
I see you. That's powerful stuff.
It is. It validates their reality on an ontological level.
Okay, I want to pivot to the practical side of this, because Zampella breaks this down into 2 dimensions of practice. The first one is what he calls being in action.
Right. This is the audit.
The audit. This is where we stop listening to our own PR spin and look at the hard data of our lives.
Exactly. Stop listening to what you say you value. Look at what you do. Look at where your time goes. Look at where your money goes. Look at where your energy goes.
And this is where that contradiction idea comes back in.
Yes, this is absolutely crucial. Zampella says contradictions and overextensions are not noise. They are data. If you say you want work-life balance, but you are answering emails at 11 p.m. every single night, that is not an accident. That is a contradiction. And that contradiction is pointing to a hidden commitment.
He tells this story about the client who wanted balance but was constantly overcommitted. I think a lot of you listening will relate to this heavily.
Oh, the indispensable client. This is a classic example.
Walk us through that, because on paper, she just sounds bad at time management.
So on the surface, this client looked like she just had bad boundaries. She would agree to too much, stay late, take on everyone else's work. The psychological fit, the standard advice we all get would be, here's a time management course, or just learn to say no.
Right. Read essentialism. Turn off your notifications.
Exactly. But she'd done all that, and she was still doing it. So Zampella digs deeper. He looks at the ontology. He asks, what is this behavior protecting? And they realized she had a hidden commitment to being indispensable.
Being indispensable.
Somewhere, deep down, her structure of being was wired to believe, if I am not needed, I may not belong.
Oof. If I am not needed, I may not belong. That hits close to home.
So her exhaustion wasn't a mistake. It was the price she was willing to pay to feel like she belonged in the group. She was being faithful to that hidden care.
That is a total game changer, because you can't just time manage your way out of a core human need for belonging.
Precisely. You cannot fix the behavior until you address the structure. Once she realized that her care was actually about belonging, she could ask herself, is there another way to belong that doesn't involve burning myself out? But until you see the structure, you're just fighting the symptoms. You're trimming the leaves of a weed while the root is still firmly in the ground.
That is so huge. It makes you look at your bad habits completely differently. They aren't just a lack of discipline. They are successful attempts to protect something else.
Successful, but highly costly.
Right. Successful but costly. Okay, so that's dimension 1, looking at our actions and auditing the contradictions. Now, dimension 2 is where Zampella gives us what I'm calling the negative emotion decoder ring.
I love that image, the decoder ring.
He argues that negative emotions, disappointment, regret, exhaustion, they aren't just bad feelings to be avoided. They are maps. They map to our fundamental concerns.
Yes, they are direct indicators that a specific type of care is being blocked or violated.
Let's go through these, because I think this is something you can use right now, today. Let's start with disappointment.
Disappointment. So imagine you're in a meeting, and it's a total waste of time. They're talking about logistics instead of the actual strategy. You leave feeling deflated and disappointed.
Standard Tuesday for a lot of people in the corporate world.
Right. Now, usually, we just complain to a coworker. That meeting sucked. But Zampella asks, what does that disappointment reveal? It reveals that you care about excellence. You care about meaningful collaboration.
So the disappointment is proof of the care.
Yes, if you didn't care about excellence, you wouldn't be disappointed. You'd be perfectly happy to just sit there and get paid to do nothing.
That is true. The apathy guy we talked about earlier wouldn't be disappointed. He'd be bored, maybe, but not disappointed.
Exactly. So the fix isn't to just suppress the disappointment or vent. It's to recognize the care for excellence and then make a request. Hey guys, next time, can we send the logistics in an email so we can spend the meeting brainstorming? You use the disappointment to structure the conditions for excellence.
Okay, next one on the decoder ring. Regret. This is a heavy one. I feel like regret lingers a lot longer than disappointment.
Regret is fascinating. Zampella says regret marks where fear or compliance overrode a care for quality or truth.
Can you give an example of how that plays out?
Sure. Imagine you rush a project because the boss wants it done fast. You know it's not your best work. You know there are errors in it, but you ship it anyway to be compliant. Afterward, you feel that sinking feeling in your stomach. That's regret.
And that feeling is telling you what?
It's telling you that you betrayed your own being. You betrayed your care for quality. It's a signal that says, hey, next time, we need to fight for the time to do this right, because doing it wrong literally hurts us. It's your integrity sounding the alarm.
It's a betrayal of being. Man, Zampella doesn't pull his punches.
He really doesn't. But it's liberating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It means your bad feelings are actually your integrity trying to speak to you.
It really is. Okay, let's talk about exhaustion again, but specifically in this decoder context. We touched on it with the indispensable client.
Right. In this specific context, exhaustion signals devotion to a concern that lacks structural limits.
Structural limits.
Think of it like pouring water into a cup that has no bottom. You are pouring and pouring. That's your devotion, your care. But because there's no bottom, meaning no agreements, no boundaries, no shared responsibility, the water just runs out.
Hmm.
And you are exhausted from constantly pouring.
So the fix isn't stop pouring, it's put a bottom on the cup.
Exactly. You need agreements. You need permissions. You need to say, I care about this project, but I can only work on it until 5 p.m. That gives the care a structure so it doesn't just consume your entire life.
I love that visual. Put a bottom on the cup. Okay, what about distraction? This is one I definitely struggle with. I sit down to do deep work, and suddenly I'm reorganizing my bookshelf or checking stock prices.
Zampella has a brilliant take on this. He says distraction isn't a lack of focus. It is attention moving toward what matters indirectly.
Indirectly. How so?
Well, let's say you're avoiding a big creative project to reconcile your finances. Why? Maybe because you're terrified the project will fail and you'll be broke. So checking your finances is a way of caring for your security.
It's a safety check.
Right. Or maybe you're reorganizing your bookshelf because your brain feels chaotic and you care about order and clarity. The distraction is trying to solve a problem that the main task is creating.
So how do we fix that? Because the main task still needs to get done.
You reframe the mundane task. You tell yourself, reconciling these finances isn't just boring math. It is structuring the freedom for my future creativity. You connect the distraction back to the main care. You validate the need for order so you can return to the work feeling secure.
That is really helpful. It stops the whole shame spiral of, I'm so lazy I can't focus.
Exactly. And speaking of lazy, the last emotion on the decoder ring is incompletion, procrastination.
The ultimate enemy of getting things done.
Zampella says this isn't laziness either. It signals an unresolved concern or a broken agreement.
An unresolved concern.
Often, we don't finish things because finishing them would force us to face something we aren't ready for. Maybe finishing a book means I have to publish it and be judged, so I leave it incomplete to protect my care for safety or reputation.
So completion doesn't always mean finishing the task in the traditional sense.
No. Sometimes completion just means closing the loop, acknowledging the resistance, saying, I'm not finishing this because I'm scared of the reception. That is a form of completion. It frees up the energy that was stuck in limbo.
Wow. Okay, so we've decoded the signals. We know what our hidden care is. Now what? Zampella gives us 3 practices for alignment. How do we keep this care alive without burning out?
The first practice is reflecting through the lens of care.
Which is different from just keeping a diary or a log of your day.
Very different. Instead of asking, what happened today? Or what did I achieve? You ask, where was my care expressed and where was it constrained?
Can you give us an example of the teacher? I thought that was a really clear way to illustrate this.
Yes, the teacher. She felt totally alive when she was mentoring students one-on-one, but she felt completely depleted doing admin work.
Which sounds pretty normal. Nobody really likes admin work.
True. But for her, it wasn't just boredom. It was a structural misalignment. Her core care was for human development. Mentoring expressed that care perfectly. Admin constrained it completely.
So it wasn't about the sheer volume of the workload. It was about the type of work.
Exactly. Once she realized that, she didn't just try to work faster or manage her time better. She realized she needed to restructure her role to prioritize the mentoring, because that's where her being came alive. She negotiated for her care.
It's about the quality of energy, not just the quantity of hours spent at a desk.
Precisely. The second practice is recognizing gaps as data. This is treating anxiety and compulsion as information, not enemies to be defeated. We've touched on this, but it's about constantly monitoring those signals in real time.
Like checking the dashboard on your car. If the check engine light comes on, you don't smash the light with a hammer, you check the engine.
Right. You thank the light for letting you know something is wrong. And the third practice is the most proactive. Reframing and choosing possibilities.
This is the so what's part of the process. Once you name the care, you have to give it a future.
You have to give it a viable path to exist in your reality. And Zampella offers 2 really cool mental models here, scaffolding and provisional.
Let's break those down for the listener. Scaffolding first.
Okay, scaffolding. Remember the anxious professional we mentioned earlier, the guy who was successful but miserable because he cared deeply about creative expression.
Yeah, the guy stuck in corporate feeling like he was wasting his life.
He couldn't just quit his job. He had bills. He had responsibilities. So instead of feeling trapped and resentful every day, he reframed his job. He decided to see his job as economic scaffolding.
I really love that. Economic scaffolding.
The job wasn't the point of his life anymore. It was the scaffolding that held up the building of his creative life. It was there to support the real work, the art he wanted to make.
That completely changes the relationship to the 9 to 5. You're not a prisoner anymore. You're an investor. You're investing that time to buy the freedom for your art.
Exactly. It reduces the resentment immediately. It aligns the job with his deeper care, even if the job itself isn't creative.
And what about the provisional reframe?
This is for when you're stuck in a season of life that feels limiting. The example is the parent who felt like her career had plateaued because she had a young child. She was despairing about her professional future.
Which is so incredibly common. You feel like you're falling behind your peers. You feel like you're losing your professional identity.
She reframed her current role as provisional, meaning this is just for now. It allowed her to prioritize presence with her child, which was her deep structural care, without feeling like she had permanently failed her career. She wasn't quitting the workforce, she was just in a provisional state.
It takes the permanence out of the situation.
Yeah.
It lets you say, I'm not a failure, I'm just in a specific chapter.
And that allows the care to breathe. It stops the internal war between being a good parent and a successful professional.
You know, what I love about all of this is that it's so profoundly humane. It's not about becoming a hyper-efficient productivity robot. It's about understanding that we are, as Zampella says, concerned beings.
That is the absolute core of it. We are not problem solvers by nature. We are concerned beings. Everything we do, even the messy, contradictory stuff, is an expression of care.
So if we look back at where we started that exhaustion paradox, the idea that we care too much, the answer isn't to care less.
No, you can't care less. That's like trying to stop your heart from beating. It's your fundamental structure. The answer is to care structurally, to build a life that actually houses your care instead of constantly fighting against it.
It's about alignment.
It's about alignment. When your outer life matches your inner structure, the exhaustion lifts, the friction disappears, and you get your energy back. Not because you're doing less, but because what you're doing actually matters to you.
That is a beautiful place to land today.
It really is.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive. We've gone from burnout to ontology, from symptoms to signals, and from anxiety to scaffolding.
It's been quite a journey.
If there is one thing, one final thought that you want the listener to walk away with today, what is it?
I think it goes back to that idea of gravity. Zampella suggests that care is existential gravity. It holds us in orbit. It keeps us grounded in reality.
Existential gravity.
And if I could leave you with a challenge, it would be this. Zampella invites us to stop fighting ourselves. So here is the question. If you stop trying to fix your bad habits for just 1 week, if you stop trying to cure your procrastination or your anxiety or your overworking, and instead asked, what is this bad habit trying to protect?
What is this bad habit trying to protect?
What hidden structure of your life would you discover? What is the secret thing you care about that you haven't given yourself permission to name yet?
That is definitely something to chew on.
I think the answer might surprise you. And it might just be the key to getting your energy back.
I think you're right. What are you protecting? I'm going to be thinking about that all week.
Me too.
Thank you, everyone, for going on this deep dive with us today. As always, the resources are available for you to explore further. Go read Zampella's work. It is dense, but incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely worth the read.
Until next time, keep listening and keep caring.
Take care.